That lemon cake is good. Huh? That lemon cake.
Lemon cake.
You want some?
I would try it.
I'm to get it for you?
Huh?
I can get it for you.
No.
So when my mom was we're sitting here. So I said, you know, yeah, the only doing. Oh. Yeah. I can't even do that, but I'm taking these. I take it.
I've seen her eat her crackers and I told her I'll let her.
I love it.
Tell me today about she has all these 3 weight lights. They'll be up, the lights off, and she wants them to be down. Yes, and so we actually did a journal. Back then, so it wasn't in there. Well, the original list that I did, it did not have, it hadn't come into that. It was just the ending number, and that's what I told him. I said, you can't go with this because we got to pull the comments. Well, you do know it. Yeah, and I'll go through the whole thing. Oh, yeah. So, because I explained, this hasn't come to $13 million. So, you can't go with this number, but because units, what units does, when you get to the end, you find it as 1, 2, 3. What he does is it releases the budget back into election. but in that same journal, it says, I'll use as an example, you had $1,000 budget, and you had an $800 PO. When they did that last month, it releases that 800 back into last year's budget. When it comes to the new year and says you have $1,000 for the new year, it says no, you really have 1,800. So it releases it back into the old year and it gives you 800 more in the new year for that one year. Munis does, I mean, that. So. I know. But I'll put it all on the paper. I was thinking about it when you did breakfast already? Yeah. Mike knew, this report is, and I told him, this has a lot of things. Here's what's beginning of last year. And I was trying to find out how much ledger or something, and I was looking at since then, I want to show you how I can get to it. So I can do a new list.
Really good. Depends on the humidity and if it's raining, it's better. I mean, it's like. It's like you don't have a bad habit. Maybe just like another so far.
Hey, I set him up, I moved him over there. Yeah. So I asked him to, because he just needs assistance. I think as long as I see him now. Where go? Yeah. No, I asked anybody to just do that or if it was. Just have to go into the train. He's open his mouth and put on that edge. You told me. I told you. You did. I can go log all the computers in train. I wouldn't do it. The time, 5 minutes. Going to sleep. Sleeping
Yeah,
it's probably good on the you got just take it. So right out. I like your jacket. So I think it's going to be like last year. For the same thing. It's the same thing. But this time it's not red.
I know you're rubbing it in. I can see it. I can see you rubbing it in.
Maybe it's
no, that's okay. That's what
would bring you here, work on it.
Why does it need that? Uninstall, reinstall it?
I already installed it. I click on it to install it, give me an error. I can bring it here. It's on my
Monica's out, it's just the two.
Yeah, so I think we're good. Okay, thank you. Hey. I'm set up. Very good.
Yeah, like
Because that ties up three people.
I had to get that out of me. He wasn't, but he still just.
On the way to Corey's parents' house for Christmas. I'm gonna
Hello? All right. Good morning. Happy Valentine's. All right. At least the other San Valentin. We have, let's see, 4 presentations today, and we have, we're gonna get started. As always, we have to just let everybody know we don't have any drills. So if you hear the alarm, we have to exit the building on the left or on the right, and just go down and we'll meet across the street. But we don't have any alarms or drills pending this morning. We have the next date, and let me just go through the second page. On March the 20th, we have our next School Finance Council. We have some topics on legislative information, insurance, and accounting. And then we have on April the 24th, bond, economy, and appraisal values. And then on May the 14th and 15th, we have investment training. So if you need investment training, sign up with us. That way, if you sign up with GTOT, you're going to end up paying for it. So sign up with HCDE and you don't have to pay for that. And then I'm working on the agendas for June, July, and August. So if you know any topics that you want, send me an email and we'll try to get some of those speakers. So at the end of the session, you see there the code, the QR code. You'll be able to scan it and be able to get your certificate from Pasco and the CPA certificates if you have a smartphone. Or you can just do that at your office and then you can email it to yourself. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? Lunch will be here around 11:30 more or less, so we'll just adjust at that time. Make sure that you leave enough room for some cakes. We have some cake coming for is it A&A? A&K nearby. So we have some dessert coming, so make sure you leave enough room for that. Stick around for that dessert. So, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. I want to thank folks from the census, the 2020 census. This is very important to us because as we start, make sure we have a good count. That means that we may either gain or lose funding when you receive your grants. It's all based on population, demographics, and what have you. So census, promoting census is very important to us. So we have folks from the census group coming in to come talk to us. And so we have today Tom Rutherford and Alejandra Pinker, and so they're going to be coming to talk to you about the 2020 census and the process. So please help me welcome Tom and Alejandra.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Rutherford. I am a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau, and this is my counterpart, Alejandra. And the presentation basically is going to go over some of the operations and the timeline and how it is important. First of all, partnership specialists like myself and Alejandra, we go out to outreach to a lot of the community and making the awareness, making the full education, why the decennial census is important this year. Yes, it is a very busy year. 2020 is so busy, but without the accurate count, we're not able to shape our future. And we need accurate count, especially in the hard to count population. And the way how I was perceived, one of the fastest growing area is the Asian community. We're talking about, from Vietnamese, Chinese, Southeast Asia, India. Those are a very growing population, and they have a lot of myths. They're a little way of, I'm not going to reply to the census. So we're just going to go through some of the slides, and I'll let Alejandra start.
Hi, good morning. Happy Valentine's. I have a Hispanic track, so when I'm out in the community, my focus is on Hispanics. And as we all know, unfortunately, there's a lot of fear in this community, a lot of mistrust. So they really look to schools, to their leaders, community leaders, organizations that they trust to get information. So please, spread the word about the census because it is very important, and there's just a lot of fear and mistrust in that community. So we all know, I'm not going to go through it in detail, but we all know why the census is very important. There's a lot of programs, grants that depend, as Jesus mentioned, on the census. There's a lot of congressional representation also depends on the census, state districting. So yes, it is very, very important for our community. Even if we don't see a check in our personal bank, it does make an impact, and it's very important to fill out.
So, also echoing what Alejandra mentioned, the important thing that we have to remember with the census, number one, federal funding. So school program, SNAP, anything from medical to emergency responses, those are within the same pot of the federal funding that's going to be distributed in the next 10 years, $675 billion. So if you can have in Texas and we can get our count up to where we need, Texas will be allocated $50 billion within the next 10 years. So when you do the math, that's about $1,500 per person every 10 years. If one individual do not we self-respond, that's the money that we're losing. You know, I depend on the Medicaid and the Gold Card for my elderly parents. I really do, and that is part of that federal funding. School program, lunch program, activities, SNAPs, WIC, those are all part of the federal funding that we have to remember. Also, a portion of the Congress seats. Okay, we will lose 2 seats if we don't get the correct count, the accurate count. So the next slide, it'll explain about the apportionment of how it's going to be a gain versus and a loss. So as you can see, Texas, we gained 4 back in 2012. I'm sorry, 2010, the last decennial. We want to keep that or more if we get an additional correct count. As you know, I am with the Vietnamese track, so I connect with a lot of the faith-based organization, and right now I'm working with the pediatric, which is children under 5, hospital, to encourage them. And you know, one of the doctors told me the other day was very interesting, a pediatric doctor in Caroline. He said, do you know why children under 5 are one of the miscounted? I said, tell me what your opinion. He said, because they're not in school. They're being kept at home, and parents like, hey, we're not going to count you. Those are number 1 being undercounted. Children under 5 and the elderly, because a lot of myth and a lot of fear. And we'll talk about, some of the safety that we have and the safeguard that we census have out there.
Again, this is just a slide kind of summarizing what we talked about, but it's very true. A lot of people think that the census, you have to be 18 or older, 21, be a citizen. That's not true. Again, the citizenship question is actually not included in the census. It's not on there. And even if it was, just know that the information is highly confidential and wouldn't be shared until after 72 years. So it doesn't really affect if it's on there or not, but it's not on there.
I do have a sample form of the upcoming questionnaires, and this form you can actually obtain on census.gov. It is not a secret form, okay? So it only has 9 easy questions, and I'll pass it out so you can you all can have a look and pardon me always writing on something when I'm trying to learn. I'm more like a visual person. I have to take a look at it and understand it. Like what Alejandra mentioned, the citizenship question will not be on there. We need everybody to be counted. The form has 9 simple questions. It asks for your name, your address, male, female, and nowadays we have a lot of people, have certain gender that they want to refer. What we need to know is what was your original attributes.
Biological birth.
Right. So, and it asks for your date of birth and your race, and it'll have, a lot of information on here, 9 easy questions. I'm going to pass them out, so if you guys have any question at the end of our presentation, we'll be more than happy to answer you. However, the sample form is on census.gov. It is public. You can see it. There's no secrets behind the form.
Yeah, it's 2020 census.
Oh, 2020
2020 census.gov.
Excuse me.
No, it's fine. And there's also great tutorials on YouTube on how to actually fill it out online, because yes, for the first time ever, you'll be able to fill out the census over the phone or online. We have amazing language guides. It's super easy to use, very user-friendly. Though you can't get lost. I think the screen changes per question, so it's really, really easy. So we hope, and a lot of people will start doing the self-response, which actually starts March 12th. So please write that down. March 12th through end of July is when you will be able to either go online over the phone, or hopefully you'll have it printed out in English and Spanish in your mail by then. So households will get a reminder starting March to go online or do it over the phone.
Yeah, the invitation form will actually come to your home, say, oh, hey, Mr. Jesus, here's the actual postcard, and it'll have an ID code. to his name, where it's a first phase, a reminder where you can fill it online. If Jesus decides, I'm gonna wait and fill out the form and actually, or I'm gonna call, the phone line covers multi-languages that we have, to be exact, 59 languages. But if they prefer not using the language, the paper form is in English and Spanish. So you do have an option. And if
And Tam, write that, there's like, if there's a full line for 13 languages.
yeah, online, there's subway how you can get online if you prefer to do it in 13 languages, including English. So Census Day, of course, is April 1st, 2020. And then we can continue the different phases or reminder phases where if you already fill out online, you will not receive another reminder. If you did not fill it online, you'll get a paper form. It'll be sent to you again, just letting you know. So you have all the way up until July 31st to fill out the form. And say, you're on vacation, extended vacation, or what you have, you're not able to fill out the form by that certain day, you will have a census taker or enumerator coming to you, knocking your door, and asking you if you need any assistance filling out the forms.
So that will start happening around end of April, so if no one has filled it out, then a census taker will go to your door. And I think to that point, it's very important to point out that there's a lot of fraud going on at this time. I always tell the community, a census taker won't just call you and ask you for your social security, a bank account, a credit card. It's very important to note that. If you fill out the census, and there's discrepancy or something we don't understand in what you wrote, or there's a duplicate of a person, then maybe someone from our office will call just to verify the data. Okay, so that's very important. We're not going to ask any, again, social security, bank accounts, nothing like that.
And if you do not fill out your forms for whatever the reason, and if you do have a census taker or enumerator come to your door, you have a right to check credentials. I always do. If you claim who you are, please show me your ID. We always wear our badge, and it'll have the United States government ID. It'll have my picture and a chip that will able to give me access to numerous things like my computer name tag. The numerator will carry a back that will say U.S. Census. But again, what Alejandra mentioned, they will never ask for your personal information, your bank routing number, your credit card, or fee. Oh, this is going to be a fee if you fill this out. No, they are not the census. We're a nonprofit. We're federal government. All your information will be kept confidential, meaning Title 13. We don't share any other information to another federal government agency. If they do call me or Alejandra and say, hey Tam, hey Alejandra, I believe, so-and-so has some undocumented living in their home, I need their information. All we need to do is say, I'm protected under Title 13. We took an oath for life. And if I do share anything, it's only, if I do, which, I think we're cute and short, and we don't want to spend 5 years in prison or $50,000. 5 years. 5 years in federal prison, the big boy one. It's not the...
We wouldn't do well.
Right, so no. Right. And also, whatever the information that's filled out from the census I have collected, the data that I have collected, it is kept safe for 72 years under Title 44. So the next time you can view the information is 2092. I don't think I'm going to last that long to, trying to find out information on so-and-so, where they live, and who live in that household. So these are the very two important, Article 13 and Article 44, that we take very seriously on keeping the information safe and confidential. I cannot stress enough. And you hear a lot of things, oh yeah, government is using this information for certain. When I took that oath, I was very serious about this job, and I want to make this a success. why would I want to jeopardize anything, to share the information? Speaking with a lot of Asian community, other community as well, people tell me, oh, I didn't fill the form. And, I respect their response, I really do. And I always remind them that, using our federal funding, which a lot of these funding are part of your community. In order to achieve those goals, we need everyone to have an accurate count. I can't stress enough how important it is to have everyone be counted once and at the right place. So people ask, okay, well, I have some kids coming back from school, how are they getting counted? If they stay in your household more than 6 months out of the year, based on April the 1st, they count at your house. If they go back to college and they spend more than 6 months at college, they're going to be counted at the school. So school program, we do have exchange student, which I spoke with a lovely German high school student. I was speaking with her and she said, well, I'm staying here for 2 years. I'm doing a 2 years program. And I advised her that, okay, wherever that you're staying, wherever you're sleeping, on April the 1st, more than 6 months, and that's where that household will count you staying there. It's not going to ask why you're staying here. No, it's not. They just want, we're just doing population count. So you have folks where they live at a hotel, like a long-term stay business guy that goes to a certain place, and that's where they go Monday through Friday, they stay there, and Saturday, Sunday, they fly home. And it may be a project they're working on. That particular hoteliers need to count them at that property. So we need the correct count, unless he said, tell them, no, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna fill the form myself. So we need to have everyone to be counted at the right place and once. I'm sorry, I talk a lot with my hands.
That's good. So again, there are 4 ways to respond this time: internet, phone, mail, or last resort in person if you have not responded in the first 3 ways.
So we really encourage everyone to self-respond. And we talk to everybody, your family, friends, church group, everyone. Now, as us, partnership specialists, I cannot help you fill out the form, and I can answer any questionnaires. I can assist you which way how to respond. When the programs go live on the middle of March, of course people say, wow, everybody's going to be jamming the website. It's going to be running 24/7, okay? So I recommend people going, late at night or early in the morning to try to avoid all of the funneling, people trying to log on. Yes, there's maybe hiccups in the beginning, but I believe the online is going to be the most effective way how we can self-respond without calling and trying to go through that. I feel really bad as I'm in my mid-50s, and I have never filled out a census form. It's always been the responsibility of my husband or my daughter. So beginning when I accepted this job, I did not understand anything about the census, and I feel ashamed of it. And then now that I'm learning more and I appreciate more, and I use that tool to encourage people to go out and let other people know, because some people will not have internet access. And they say, well, I don't have any internet access. Well, you go to Starbucks, do you go to a library, those areas will have free internet access. However,
That's secure.
Secure, and they're secure. Make sure it's secure, and the information that you're adding to it will keep confidential.
And Tam, one more thing that we haven't mentioned yet is now there will be a special website where you can go. As people start doing the self-response, you're going to be able to see on a map kind of the areas that haven't So what is the census going to do? We're going to go out there into those areas. We're going to have mobile questionnaire assistance sites, and those are actually formed from our partners that we have obtained. There's 32 partnership specialists here in Houston, and so we're working with different organizations, and what they have to have is internet, one, first of all, to help people and encourage people to fill out the census with them. But it is also important to ask and know that not all of the people assisting in those sites will be official census workers. So just know that, you know, if you need help, if you go into a library and there's a special event to fill out the census, not everyone that is working there will have taken that oath that we took for life. So just know that you're, you know, maybe exposing your information to somebody that's not a census worker. But yeah, that's a really neat thing, and that's going to be a great tool for us to be able to complete a count in a more effective way.
Right now we're open.
Any questions? Anything? Any concerns?
Any myths that you heard? We're here to answer you. And also keep in mind that the federal funding for the food grants. If you have any question of that, I'll leave my business card here with Jesus, and you can certainly call me anytime. If I cannot find the answer to the grant for the federal funding grant for the school, I will find it for you, and I will send you the site, and that, you know, this is what you need to do. There's a deadline, there's certain criteria that you meet. When I mention the grant, that, you know, all eyes are on me. So there are a lot of grants out there that you may be eligible for the school. I can find that out for you all. I can certainly find out in a deadline. The money that we're talking about, the $675 billion, is used for that particular organization. So why not get out there, help your school, help your kids get these grants. I don't want any of the sporting or any of the music department to be cut because there's not enough funding for the school. I have great nieces and nephews, which I really want for them to achieve better, you know, education. We all want that for the children. We all need to focus on that. And the federal grants are out there. We just need to know where to look. I'll leave my business, like I said, I'll leave my business card with Jesus, and if you're interested, give me a call. If not, I can get with my senior partnership specialist or even my coordinator. I can go to the regional director if I need to get the information that you are looking for. Yes, ma'am.
Do y'all have an estimation of how many people don't? You know, is there a percentage or a ratio that you think 50% of the people don't respond, or you have?
There's no way, yeah. I think we'll see that as self-response happens, and anyone can access this map online on the census website. So we'll see.
Some of the areas that will be affected, such as, you know, how we have Hurricane Harvey, some of the homes are being displaced. Those areas we may see a lowest response because no one is living in that dwelling. So I live on the south side of town, you know, the Clear Lake, League City area. And when we went on these websites to look which area had a higher non-response, it's more Webster and Kima. And it could be by the fact that the folks been displaced or renters not keeping up with a certain dwelling. Those are the areas not being counted, so it's low. Kima, believe it or not, because it's more an entertainment area. They still measure by demographic, but it's all restaurants and so non-residential area, so you're going to see a lower score when it comes out. So I can send all this information to Jesus, and he can pass it on to you guys. What you can look up. These are public information. We're not keeping it as a hush-hush. The area that we call it Rome is an area mapper that you can go on, and it's a public website. You can plug in a certain address or your home address to look, and it's gonna pull up a percentage of households that live in that area, population, from a certain ethnic background, the age, senior, children under 5. The website, it's a long and lengthy, I will send it to Jose and he can pass it out on you guys to look. It's really interesting. And also remember 2020 census.gov, where you can see the sample form of the actual questionnaire, 9 questions.
And again, go on YouTube, there's great resources there, great videos where you can actually see the process. But yeah, it's projected that Houston will, fight for the 3rd position of the largest city.
Yeah, right now, Chicago is beating us. We gotta move up a little bit. Number 1 is New York, 2nd is Los Angeles, 3rd is Chicago. Just imagine,
Maybe Houston.
just imagine demographics. Chicago is a lot smaller, but they are getting a lot of backed up as far as participating in the census. Houston is number 4 because right now we're trying to wrap up and trying to encouraging people. Oh, trust me, I want Houston to be the 3rd largest city. I really do, and we need everyone's help to achieve that goal.
Any other questions? Yeah. How are homeless people covered by the census?
Okay, so homeless are being counted differently. We work with church organization, homeless shelter, and day resources. Those are some of the partners that I work with. We have, speaking with them, made them partners with us, and what they will do is they can either host a certain time frame for the homeless. For example, Lost, Lord of the it's a physical church downtown. Reverend Steve Capers and I established a certain day for them to come to the church, and that's how they're going to be counted under the church address. Some of the places, churches will not want to do that due to tax purposes, so they're going to be sent to our area census office. And we have 6 area census offices in the Houston area. We will make that public where we will have internet access, and the homeless can certainly come. We don't know about transportation, how we're going to get there, but they're important too. We need to be counted.
I believe also some of our census workers go into areas identified by churches and partners and the government that have a high level of homeless. So I believe some census takers will go in there.
Right. And the enumerator will be out there talking with them, and the way how they are counted is going to be totally discreet from the general public. They only giving us a certain time frame for the homeless, and those are being arranged right now directly with some of the homeless shelter and churches and day resources center. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, group housing, for example, with the elderly or students at universities, any group housing has already started counting since February, so they have been accounted. Any other questions?
How would the college, do you have a student in college and also do you get a form at home? How do you avoid the double counting?
Yeah, if a student is living at home, sleeping, just, it's going to the university during the day, but then they count at the house. If they're sleeping in a dorm and they have to sleep in a dorm for a year or 2, then they are counted at the university.
Yeah, just remember April 1st, wherever that you are staying more than 6 months, that's where you're going to be counted. So for example, my stepdaughter goes to college in College Station. The College Station University will count her because she's going to be staying there more than 6 months. That's where she sleeps the most. Then she comes to my house and equals the condo. Hey, that's how kids are. They get dirty laundry too. So wherever, just remember, wherever that you sleep on April the 1st, and you stay there more than 6 months, that's where you're going to be counted. Whether you're exchange student, you're a student, guests, extended guests, family members, anybody, doesn't matter. Whether you have a 1-bedroom apartment many, 20 people live in there? We're just doing population count. We're not out there to police you on the rental agreement, how many people can stay in that apartment. We just want to know how many people live in that household.
And also, if you have any friend that's pregnant and she gives birth on April 1st before midnight, like even 2 minutes, a minute, that baby counts, even if it's in the hospital.
So we're using, again, April the 1st as that day. Now, baby born April the 2nd, no, they do not get counted.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Have to wait 10 years. Yeah.
Obviously, you have a database around which helps someone's been reported twice.
Yes, absolutely. There's data like quality check, absolutely.
The National Processing Center, NPC, and their quality control will be inputting the data. And if they see duplicate form, it'll be flagged. We'll save the form, and at that point, they will receive a call from a census employee and say, hi, my name is so-and-so, I see that the form is duplicating, so we're going to use the most current one, and we just want to run over and verify that. Again, we don't want duplications, and trust me, there's a lot of scammers out there trying to, let's say, they go online and plug in your home address, and then they're trying to inflate or deflate the numbers. Again, if we see that, it's going to be flagged, and at that point, verification will come.
You can't reach the people that you're trying to reach, then what happens?
We will continue reaching them.
Try.
They're going to continue reaching them, I don't know how many times. They're going to try and let them know, hey, we're unable to reach, or we try to do this. That would be up to the quality control team, how they want to have that. And now, if they see a continuing duplication, and it'll be discarded. They're going to remove that out of the system.
Yeah, another thing, we're still doing massive hiring. So if anyone's looking for an awesome part-time job for the summer, that pays really well. It's paid training, paid mileage if you're out in the field, super flexible hours. You just have to commit to at least 20 a week, 20 to 40. We have jobs available, so please go on our website, again, 2020census.gov. It's just a general application, and yes, what we're looking for the most are census takers, so people that go home to home, went to the people that haven't responded online or over the phone.
And right now, it's in the peak of hiring, recruiting, so if you guys would like or know anyone that would want to obtain a position with the census, please go online, fill the form, and I encourage everybody, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes. You have to be 18 and over, U.S. citizen, with reliable transportation, and the way my understanding from a recruiting manager here in Houston, you can be hired the next day. If you get online and want that job back, fill it out. They will go through a background check. We have to meet a certain goals of hiring, so we can able to cover the Houston area and able to reach out to those who haven't self-response. And like I said, the pay, you get paid every week, you get paid for the mileage, and people are concerned about safety. We're not going to send you to an area that we know that it's been flagged or a non-safe area. You may go out with an individual and another members. If you feel like, hey, I don't feel like going, to this area, would you send someone with me? Absolutely. And if you get somebody going rude to you, just tell them thank you and leave. And so, it's not very, we don't want to pressure you and put you in harm's way when you do work for the census. They will provide adequate training, and like I said, we're in a peak of hiring right now. So if you just want to have a nice little Louis Vuitton bag, hey, this may pay for it, or a nice pair of shoes. So it depends where you live. It could be up to I want to say $24 an hour.
In Harris County.
In Harris County, but Montgomery and other counties may be higher. And again, all the information you can find is on 2020census.gov.
With the census takers, there's never argument.
No.
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 are prohibited from carrying firearms even in your vehicle. And if they do find out, again, that orange suit does not gonna look good on me. No, no.
No one will like, yeah, no weapons. Absolutely not.
So how, besides, like, for instance, there's a lot of foreign people, so besides showing them that you made an oath, what other ways can you show trust? Because I know lots of people, they look at the paper and they're like, we're not gonna fill this out. We're basically giving you all our information. How are we gonna trust you? Because people break the law all the time.
Yeah.
Particularly in light of things that could happen later.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of the challenge that we're faced with. We go out into the community, we try to talk to you guys, to businesses, to, you know, reverends, the church.
All the community that we're trying to reach out right now, especially faith-based, that I see that a lot of people are mistrusting the census, especially the information. How do we get through that? Well, yes, there are always going to be challenges in life. And what we do is we get out to all these organizations, we educate them, we tell them this is what we know and this is what's happening. And you, with your trusted voice, say you're in a certain school district, your trusted voice, you go back and tell the students, the family members, you know, hey, this is what I learned today, this is interesting. That's how it's going to break that challenges, and that's what we hope to break, I should say. So again, all the information on 2020 census.gov or census.gov, all of it on there. None of the information are being secret or being hidden somewhere where we're not going to share it with the general public.
What is the, I know that there's a lot of myths about, well, you take the census and that information is going to be shared with ICE.
No, it was
I mean,
how you
Yeah, again, well, it's against the law. I mean, we just, as the Census Bureau cannot share data with any other federal agency, FBI, CIA, ICE. The president also cannot access personal information from our database. It's just not.
I'll tell you who can overturn that is Congress. You think they're gonna take time to overturn, to look up information? It's gonna take a long time. That's the only one that can overturn to look at the information.
Like personal information. So the Census Bureau will make available all data that we collect, but in statistical format. So come December, the president will get a report, but all he'll see are stats. You know, you can't zoom in and like, oh, who's here in this zip code? Oh, well, look at this little house. No, just it's not going to happen. That's why, I mean, it is difficult to try to convince someone that's completely fearful. I mean, we know that there will be people that just won't do it. They just don't trust it. But I speak with a lot of immigrants, and what I tell them is, you know, we all came here, my parents included, we all came here for a better opportunity. I know we mistrust our government institutions in our countries, but we came to America for a better life, and we have to have faith in these institutions. Because that's the only way our democracy is going to work.
If a school district or a nonprofit organization wanted to hear you a presentation at their PTA or at their, staff meeting or what have you, would they contact you at this number?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Tam's information, and then I do Hispanic, so I'm fluent in Spanish as well. I'll give my information to Jesus, or maybe you can email him, and I'm more than happy to go out. I love talking to parents, and giving them information, and I can slowly see them, kind of nodding their heads. Some just stare at me like, no, it's not going to happen. But those are the fewer ones, I hope.
And if any of you, connect with any other organization that you would love for us to come out and explain a little bit more and go into the details that we are doing today or extend it, we're more than happy to do that. That's what we're there for. We're a partnership specialist. We're going to get out there. We want to outreach, reach the community, and, whether it's a nighttime, weekend, let us know in advance. We'll be there. We want everyone to support the census. We want everyone to have an active self-response. We want everyone to be counted, everyone. the fact that the federal funding, congressional seats, the expansion of the city, you know, the building and all that, and it goes onward and onward. And yes, we would be more than happy to come out there and talk to you additional to different organizations. Trust me, I've gone to the ladies auxiliary in my church, you know, and you know, to speak with them, and they just love the way how it was presented, going to depth of how the census will benefit our church.
Any other questions?
And, you know, I apologize, I speak super fast, and that's usually how I talk. And if, like I said, if you guys have any other additional questions, I'll leave my contact information, we'll leave our contact information with Jesus. And if you need to know, especially on those school federal funding, let us know, we'll find it for you. And we'll give you the criteria. So I do thank you all for your attention this morning. It's been such a pleasure giving you guys this presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, and enjoy your day. Thank you.
All right, let's take 5 minutes, we can change speakers, and then we'll come back to the next bit.
Hey,
I know your name.
I know.
Why are you flying off those jackets, man? What's up? Why are you flying off the jacket already? Harris County all over here. Harris County all over here.
Good.
Just put myself here. Hi, everyone. I heard with my daughter. She said, Shalonda. I used to work with my daughter. Yeah. I worked for the good times must be, sure. With a smile. Yeah.
So I guess.
Yeah.
Well, now they're gonna, whatever. Oh, yeah, because if you charge her. Years ago, she said, hey, girl.
All right, good morning, and we're going to go ahead and continue. So our next speaker, Dr. Moya, has been with us before, and we always try to schedule him at least once or twice a year. It's important that we look at not just our physical health, but also our mental health. And so for me is, I always enjoy his sessions and try to look at self-reflection and figure out, how to address some of the things that may be bothering me. And so I hope that you enjoy this session. I've had the pleasure of hearing him now, probably about a little over 6-7 years now that we've collaborated with each other. He also is going to do a presentation later on today to our Head Start group, identifying some of our daycare center managers and talking to them about mental health and wellness for administrators. So please help me welcome my friend, Dr. Mariton Moya.
I took off my coat and I'm still cold. I woke up at 3 and left home at 4:30 this morning in Denver. And it was in the 30s. And so I got a chill and I haven't been able to shake it. So, I'm glad he gave me 51 minutes. Because I couldn't delete some other stuff. I cameras. When I was in graduate school in Boulder, Colorado, Professor Victor Roman was a person that wrote the first major dissertation on the South. And he wanted us to become an expert in one of the psychotherapies. And I studied them all, and I couldn't decide on one. It seemed like all of them were lacking. And then my father died in a car accident, and it really bothered me. So a friend of mine told me, why don't you see a psychoanalyst for a few sessions? I went for one session, and I liked the experience. And here I was. So ever since then, I've been developing kind of like an operating system for people to study themselves. I think basically if you understand yourself, you can pretty much solve it. No? Okay. Yeah, I get accused. I'm not speaking loud enough, but that's why it works when you're doing hypnosis. Kept a nice voice, but just. And that's what we're going to do right now. No, we're not. But, so anyway, so that's what you're going to be exposed to today. So let's start out by doing something that we don't allow ourselves to do often enough. And that is just get in a very focused state. All hypnosis is a state of focused attention. Okay? So what we're going to do is right now, most of them are data. Your brain was going like this, so you're highly distracted. You know, thoughts about happy hour or whatever, you know, it's coming to your mind already. I had the hardest time getting my mind to focus on today because I'm already thinking about, you know, going out. We can finally get some sons to play some basketball. So anyway, what I would like for you to do is to sit up straight and put both of your feet on the ground. And it helps to kind of like pay attention to how straight your back is and how aligned it is with your body. Because all this helps with a relaxed state. And it engages. Also, when kids take exams, sitting like this increases your intellectual power. Okay? So now I want you to focus on your breath. What we're going to be doing, you see that gold spot? I think that's the magic area where most people would like to operate. Very successful people are able to go there, whether they're athletes, movie stars, businessmen. When they work there and they're very efficient. Okay? And I'll talk about work-life balance and stuff like that. But the main thing about this exercise is how when you're working, you can increase the efficiency and have energy left over at the end of the day. So I want you to focus on your breath. Don't try to force it, just focus on your breath. And relax. You're going to be doing this for about 4 or 5 minutes. I'll be saying some things, but I want you to just pay attention. And I want you to get used to why most people can do this, which is that when you do this, time slows down, and it seems like a long time. You've done it. I do this throughout the day several times. I don't work for more than 45 minutes straight. So there's no productivity, I'm not wasting time. So I just ask them to do what I'm asking to do right now. Sometimes I get up and jog in place. But I'm still doing what I'm teaching right now. Now what I want you to do is I want you to picture in your mind a favorite place. This is right now, I have my eyes open. And I need this overlook outside of Vail, Colorado. There's a valley. There's a stream running right down the valley. And there's a cabin that I can see, and I've always wanted to see if I can rent a cabin and escape there for 40 days. Haven't done it yet. But that's where my mind is right now. And I always feel very relaxed. There's all kinds of wildflowers all around me. Go to your favorite place and you'll be surprised what you discover. And one of the things that I advise people to do when they're there in their favorite place is that that's the place where you should go to when you're dealing with a difficult problem. Be prudent. Don't be impulsive when you're dealing with difficult situations. Take your time. Line things up the years have taught me is that most problems take care of themselves. Okay, I'll stay there as long as you want to. I'm going to move on with the lecture. One of the reasons that we experience conflict is that there's a divided self, and there's an impermanence. There's nothing permanent about us. Right now, you're someone. When you get home, you're someone else. When you're at work, you're someone else. And I'll explain that. And so this is the way I conceptualize the self. And the body's thinking, the mind is thinking, the brain is thinking, and I also believe in the soul. Okay? But the soul to me is more like the spirit. It's a link. And it just makes sense of everything. And then, there's a part of us that are injured, and part of us that are uninjured. Sometimes we feel like, when you're a writer the way I am, sometimes you'll be reading a paragraph and you say, God, this is the best paragraph I've ever read. Even though Albert Einstein still knows, I see it. It's my motto. And then you look at a paragraph, the same paragraph another day, and you say, man, this is just the thing you want to care about. So there's an uninjured self, and there's an injured self for your part. And then there's the existential self. Think of those days when you come to work, and it goes by like this. You're in your existential self. Which you just be yourself. Like I told the people with the teachers at the Head Start program, we fail to realize that people love you for who you are. People don't love you for who you think you are. They love you for who you are. And that's the existential self. So, oops. That's another way of looking at it. Very complicated. Don't you look at it that way? It's kind of like, I developed this when I was in graduate school. And so you see, there's all kinds of divisions. And if you picture this, picture your mind. Within your mind, there's a transpersonal mind, an interpersonal mind, and a personal mind. They're all different. Your transpersonal mind, the kind of work you do, being a male, being white, being Chicano, you know. And then there's the interpersonal, which are your significant relationships that you esteem, and also the ones that are close to you that aren't working out for you. And then there's a personal self. And this is the important thing about the personal self. You can be married to somebody for 50 years, and you still will not know the personal self of that person. Okay? You can be in therapy for 30 years, and your therapist will not know that personal self. We're very private. And so some of the things when it can't make sense to somebody, it's because of that. So, if you take a look at it, psychotherapy, and there's different theories, you go and you peel the person, and you notice up there at the top, there's a transpersonal injured self. And I think that that's the predominant self right now. Okay? If it weren't for that, there would be all the fighting and name calling and stuff that's going on in Washington, that's going on in the news media, you know, that's going on amongst families. My brother and I are estranged because of political differences. So that, and then you go down and to the uninjured mind, transpersonal. And from the thing about it is that most of your work is at the transpersonal level. And then you get into the interpersonal level, and finally you go down deep within yourself. And when you get down there to the middle, you actually can go to a place where there's no self. It's kind of scary. Takes a lot of training. But they say that when you lose yourself, the state of being that you experience is just incredible. To tell you the truth, I'm at the point, I'm exploring that right now. And it's scary to think of yourself as not having a self. And that's the impermanence of life. And you find all of a sudden you start having thoughts. Just like, I remember one time I was interviewing a psychotic man in Denver, Colorado. They were going to restrain him because they didn't want to take his medication. He's a big man. So I said, let me talk to him first. And I sat down with this man, and he took me on a voyage into his mind. And I got to the point, I listened to him for about an hour, and I got to the point where I was questioning my own reality and listening to his. And at a certain point, the fear hit me, and he read it in my face. And he stopped. And he says, okay, what did you want to say to me, Doc? I said, you see those guys over there? They're going to come and they're going to pin you down on the floor, and they're going to hit you in a shot, whether you want to or not. But if you go to that counter and you tell them, I'm ready to take my medication, and you take it, you're going to let you out by the weekend. And you can do whatever you want to with the meds after that. So the next time I came, he did just that. So because I listened to him for an hour, and what was in his mind, he was able to listen to me and take some corrective action. It's amazing how much of intervention is listening. The reason for this, I am convinced, and I pretty much agree with the people that say that something happens, and then we know it happened. So everything that happens to us happens moments before we're aware that it happened. The brain is doing it. And I see some people nodding their heads. It's kind of scary to think about it because we think we believe in free will. I don't know how much free will there is. I know I make some dumb mistakes. And then I just kind of say, why? Well, because history, habits. Most of our life is habits. So think about it. Ever since you were a child, you've been conditioning your brain to act in a certain way. It's kind of what we ball players do. I played sports with high school kids, and I beat them. I'm 71 years old. They say, sir, how do you do it? And I says, how many baskets have you shot? Oh, a lot. How many do you think I've shot through the years? Not only that, I play with their mind when they're shooting. When they get hot, I say, man, you're really hot. What are you doing? And they start thinking about the shot and they start missing. I don't do it often, but you can do little things like that to just kind of mess with people's game. Okay? And so that the important thing here, and the one thing that I want to focus on in this picture is the amygdala. I don't know how people feel about me sharing something like this, but when I grew up, the word whipping had a different meaning. Okay? Nowadays, they would call it domestic violence. Okay? Really. And my father was a big man, 300 pounds. And I remember one incident that just took the heck out of me. So I guess there was some PTSD involved that I dealt with. And one of the things that happens with that kind of a situation is you have trouble controlling your anger. Okay? Just like the vets that I've been helping that came back from Iraq and Afghanistan. And they don't feel comfortable with their anger. And they want it to go away, but it's not. It's part of their life for the rest of their lives. It's like part of the sacrifice they made for their country. Because the amygdala, as a result, enlarges. And you become highly sensitive to things. And what I just taught you to do with the realization, I believe that if you do it often enough, and if you're really, really disciplined about it, that you can put the enigma in perspective to where you can experience more equanimity, more peace of mind, which I think is what everybody wants. But the main thing is, a lot is going on that I was known. So I developed a system called reflective transformation. And you notice, there's the real me, and there's the me that I want to be. There's the real American and the ideal American. Okay? I love the real Americans. I have issues with who we think we are. Okay? But that's just me. That's part of critical thinking. And part of satire, which is what I like writing. So that the main thing, and I'm going to show you some examples, what I want to be thinking about, I want you to be thinking about, is that I believe that a lot of people's unhappiness is because of the incongruence between your real self and your ideal self. I have a friend, he's a Baptist. I say that because he loves to drink like a fish. Especially in the closet. And he's a dear friend. We are at opposite sides politically. But we've been friends since we toured Europe around for 35 days. He was MGB. And we were roommates in Shreveport, Louisiana, security police squadron. And I forgot the story now. That's the age. It'll come back to me. I just lost it.
Incongruence between real and ideal self. That's where you.
Oh yeah, right. And thank you. Because of that. So that when Chuck goes through a period that most of us here in America do, we're bingers. One, we're not really addicts or we're bingers. Whatever it is, we're bingers. We binge on Netflix. We binge on popcorn and cookies and stuff. We binge on beer. Sometimes tequila, But Chuck will do it where he says, I'm never going to drink again. And I'm saying, why? That's a setup. That's a setup. I mean, when I do that, and I've done it too, you know what happens? I walk around thinking about it all the time. Okay? So I'll stop doing it. And that's what I'm talking about, the incongruence between the ideal self. And I'm going to be talking about, what the most beautiful cure there is that God gave us? Self-compassion.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Next to that. Self-compassion. Okay? And I'll be talking about self-compassion afterwards. Now, you notice that a lot of what I do, and right now there's a lot of big problem going on with retention, attrition, absenteeism in schools, in business, everything. Okay? And this new crop of people are going to hang around. This is what we're just talking about, how long we hang around with work. I mean, I was talking to the vice president of Mexican operations for a big international company last week. And he was talking about that, and I told him, don't expect your people to stay here and retire with you. You have to make plans for attrition all the way. So that's why I was hired, to help and set up a formula, to set up an algorithm to where we can manage that. And because they want to open up more factories, but they're afraid to. Okay? Because of people. Do you realize there's close to 400 maquiladoras in Juarez, Mexico? That's a lot of competition. So, what I do also when I'm doing that, always, in our work, we start by reading, like in the morning when I look for my email, first thing I do, delete, 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 delete. Okay? First thing I do, just delete. And then simplicity. I've gotten rid of just about everything that I own. And just keeping it very simple. Fewer decisions. Decisions wear you down. The more decisions you make a day, the more tired you're going to be at the end of the day. Keep it simple. And part of that is the minimalism. Okay? My sister visits me every year. She lives here in Cambridge. And she'll go down to the valley and she lets me go to Mexico to party the island and stuff for my birthdays. She was sitting down and she was looking at my home and she was saying, gosh, Mel, everything here is necessary. And that's right. Anything that's not something that I use, I give it away. And just kind of like, and right now I'm in the process of shredding a whole bunch of stuff, you know? And then there are two concepts that are important, reinforcement and bias. Here's the thing about it, we're all biased. All of us are biased and all of us judge, period. So just here, that the HR person at this corporation where I went to work, in the middle of my lecture, she went, Kat, I'm so judgmental. I didn't realize I was so judgmental. You know? And it wasn't that she was judgmental, it was just they had developed a system of interviewing people to come to work for them, and the system had become biased. Okay? And my work was helping them focus on the system becoming biased. But the moment that you become biased, guess what happens? You become less biased. Okay? It's the people that don't realize that they're biased, that they're prejudiced. Okay? That are the ones I worry about. Okay? Because bias is part of the way our brain is rigged up. It's part of the survival mechanism. And part of that is negativity. Okay? It's biased towards negativity. Have you noticed how it doesn't matter what party you're in, it's the other party's candidates that are the bad guys? You know? And so you go over here, and the bad guys are over there. So what are the good guys? Okay? And so, and then reinforcement. You realize people don't realize this. Reinforcement is the number one predictor of successful schools. When I used to go into low performance schools, they were reinforcing all the behaviors that they didn't want in their school. Every time somebody misbehaved, boom, they reacted. But they didn't see all the good behaviors that were going on. When you go into exemplary schools, the best schools, the opposite's going on. And you walk into that school, and the front person gives you a smile. You know, right? So, reinforcement. And you can do the same thing. If you're working next to a person that just hurts you, okay, and that happens a lot. I know. I mean, I worry about myself, and I hurt myself. Yeah, I look good. Give me a break, you know? And I do. And I'll give myself a break. I'll go outside. Okay? But what you do is reinforce the behavior that is congruent with the way you like to be treated. And kind of ignore the other behavior instead of reacting to it. Because that person's probably being reinforced. And remember that most of what people do, so whatever the person is doing to you, the person more likely is not aware that they're doing it to you. Just the way we aren't. So you can take a lot of control by reinforcing what you want. Okay? Yes. Yeah. Why does this happen? Sir? Why does this happen? Can you rotate it there? Or does it need to be rotated here?
Yeah.
And you could just show them, it's already the second slide. And they're the slides that I bring in. Videos. Just real quick. No, it's not that. It's right in front of you. Oh, yeah, you. And now, there. Pardon? There it is. Is there a technical?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. About how restrictive the politics and how careful we need to be not to offend people nowadays. We have to tone down your lectures. You know, whereas before you could say things that would, jolt a person, which is sometimes needed for clear understanding. Critical thinking is no longer happening. So the concern is this. There's a lot of mendacity going on in terms of what is being done in our lives. Google, Facebook, etc. Which is lying to get what they want. Okay? So you go, you watch the commercials on TV, and you see the medication, and they have this picture of something that's going on right, and then they're saying all these things that can go wrong. Okay? If you take the drug. Well, most people, because they don't have the critical thinking, are just seeing the picture and stuff like that, and they're not hearing any of what's being said about it. Okay? That's mendacity. And that's type of critical thinking. So that what I want you to keep in mind here is that we're all guilty of that. And I remember when I went to contrition, I'll share this with you. And I was about 50. And all of a sudden, I had a big business slowdown. So I started doing a lot of reflection. And the one thing that came when I went to the spirit of contrition was that I realized that what bothered me most about myself was all the bad things that I said about other people. That's what bothered me the most. And I've done a lot of stuff that many people haven't done. I've had a lot of fun. Okay? All in the Middle East, in Europe, in Mexico and the US. And I got a lot of fun, but the one thing that really bothered me was what I've been saying, what I said about other people. So what I want you to do, kind of stop and just kind of like reflect. Because it's part, see, all those negative thoughts, I really believe that your body's listening to you. And that's where the stress comes in. And I want to show you some very scary statistics about stress. Creates a lot of stress inside of you. Okay? Those negative thoughts. But they're natural. If you take a look, what do you do with the 4 basic states of being, which are the body, the soul, the brain, and the mind? There's examples of what you can do to feed them. That's what I do. Daily and weekly. And especially like walking in nature and playing basketball at the park. But you have to think of your whole person and be aware that you're feeding your body, your brain, your soul, and your mind. If not, you're not going to be in a state of good mental health. And the wellness that you expect is not going to be there. Stress happens like this. You ignore it for a long time, and then all of a sudden, you're sick. Not only are you sick for a day or two, you're sick for a long time, for months. That's the way stress works. If you don't monitor it. Okay. So I'm just asking you, and that's the reason for the exercise that I taught you. If you do it throughout the day, you're going to pay attention to your body. In fact, let's do it one more time and do a quick diagnostic. So you're at your desk right now, and your brain just came process what's on the screen. I know if it happens to me, it happens to you guys too. Okay? So you pause. And then you sit down and focus on your breathing. And I want you to become aware, okay, of that part of your body that's speaking to you right now. You can use like a magic hula hoop or something that goes through your body to do like an MRI. We'll do a scan. And what do you feel? Do you feel it? It's on your eyes, you feel it in your neck, you feel it in your shoulders, you feel it in your chest. You feel it in your stomach, you feel it in your back. Where do you feel the discomfort? If there's any. Just pay attention. Okay. I was telling Suze that he had a seminar here when I spoke once. What's the name of that term for how you sit at the desk and computers and stuff? Ergonomics. Yeah. And I listened to them, and I had been walking around like this. And I said, man, I'm under a lot of stress. And I couldn't move my neck. And I was having to drive like this. And then I listened to a lecture on how to practice everything. I moved the computer around, moved my desk around and stuff like that, and before I knew it was gone. But the point is, I didn't pay attention to it, so it was very serious. Okay? So, I want you to think, what can you do for yourself? Now, I'm just as busy as you all are, but I still find time to do all of this. Okay? Now ask yourself, what are you doing? Are you doing this kind of stuff for yourself? Okay. I've already explained this. There's 3 analytical states. Everything that happens that you're thinking about, you'll think about it at 3 different spheres. You're either thinking about it transpersonal, again, that's cultural, gender, work, and like I was talking about earlier, accountants and teachers have the highest burnout rates in the country. Okay? I wasn't aware of the accountants until I started doing some research. So that's a message to you all in terms of dealing with the transpersonal sphere of existence. Here's the thing about it. I know some people, especially like child welfare people, they don't have a life beyond their work. They're always talking about their cases, always. You know? Beware of that, okay? I mean, they say Americans work all the time. And we do. We work like 8.5 hours average. But guess what? Another side of the statistic shows that out of those 8.5 hours that we're at work, 4.5 hours we're spending talking to friends by the water cooler, working on the internet, etc. And that we only work about 4 hours as a whole. Okay? Well, I don't. I put in my 8 hours. I don't. A good day for me is 6 hours. Okay? A good day for me is 6 hours. And I prioritize my projects. You know? 4 90-minute projects a day. Okay? And that doesn't include the reading, though, which, when you're a writer, requires a lot of reading. Warren Buffett says, Warren Buffett spends 90% of his time reading. And he says, yeah, okay, if you want to be rich, read and reprove it. Don't make hasty decisions. When you're driving home, when you see the Walmart, don't stop. You know, unless you have a reason. And you already made plans for it. The interpersonal sphere. Here's the thing, there's two sides to the interpersonal sphere. There's the people that we're friends with, and it's just that there's the friends that we're friends with, but I want to be more of a friend than you want to be my friend. And then there's the other friends. The friends that want to be friends with us, but we don't want to be friends with them. Okay? There has to be more of those, not nowadays. It seems you want to be more alone. So that you have to think about those ways. Injured, uninjured. And the personal sphere of existence. That's when we get into all those things that you've done that only you know you've done. All those thoughts that you've had that only you know that you've had. I'm reading a book right now by a very famous that got kicked out. First it was censored, and he's kicked out Thunderbird. And it's the book of laughter and forgetting. And he's talking about how he had these fantasies of this friend of his. And while he was talking to her, he had thoughts of raping her. Okay? And he couldn't understand the thoughts until they analyzed them. And it wasn't that he wanted to do that. It was just a matter of the desperation he was feeling that he was being pushed, ostracized. Okay? And he was grasping for something. And that's the reason he was having a fantasy. And he didn't talk about it until like 20 years later. Okay? Never mentioned anything to her. So here we go again, just to reinforce this. There's an injured part of you, there's a non-injured part of you, and then an existential part of you. And the biggest part of you is the injured self. Why? Because that's the way the brain is programmed. Negativity, bias, and self-criticism run that. In my way of thinking, I don't like using all this. I walked into a psychiatrist's office on a very difficult child custody case where they're trying to take the child away from the mother. who's got mental illness. But she's not that bad. So anyway, and so I walked into the psychiatrist's office and I was shocked. When I walked in, there must have been as many people as there are here in his office, waiting to be seen, ready to get their pills. You know? And I was just shocked. I was just shocked at how many people were waiting to see the psychiatrist. Followers. I want you to think closely about this. To me, there's four main character types. There's explorers, there's inventors, there's fabricators, and there's followers. 1% of the population are explorers. And we're not necessarily talking about Zuckerbergs or Vessos or people like that. Okay? Because they're more like fabricators, right? They know how to make the money from what the explorers do, right? And there's inventors. Like with my writing on education, what I think to do with the 3 courses is to reinvent the way we think about education in this country. And 3% of the population is inventors. And then the fabricators make up about 9%. The majority of people are followers. But within the followers, there's also at the top, explorers, inventors, and fabricators. Within the explorers, there's also inventors, fabricators, and followers. Now I want you to see, where do you fit? Think of yourself. Do some self-analysis right now. Don't just listen to it. Participate. What are you? Okay? What are you? I like to think of myself as an explorer. And I figure, what, sometimes you're an explorer, and you get out there, and nobody understands what you're saying, and nobody gets your work, and you're broke. It scares the hell out of you. Okay? Then you want to backtrack and say some of the things that followers say, that way you can get some work. And then you realize it's not you. And I like to invent things. I don't like to use other people's, test other people's things. I like to invent my own. What I do, I come up with based on what people ask me to do. So, and then there's 4 vantage points. And I want you to pay attention to this, and again, self-assess. There's the insiders looking in. These people are happy with the way things are. You go to your office, you are happy in your office, and you don't want anything to change. Nada. Why? Because if things change, you lose power. It's predictable, it's consistent, you know it well. Okay? I go down to places in Region 2, some of the school districts where I work, they've been doing the same thing 30 years. And then you wonder why the schools don't work. You know? But here come the power people are not going to change. They're expensive. Unless they hire somebody like me that will go in there and say all the things that nobody wants to hear. Then they get better for a little while, they get recognized and stuff, and then I go away and they back again. Because nobody's willing to do it. So, that's the insider looking in. The insider looking out is the person that can work someplace for 13 years. But you've got your eyes looking out for new ideas. And I'm not talking about best practices kind of stuff. You're looking for new ideas, you meet a lot about the way things are. These kind of people are usually the popular ones in systems because they're very relaxed. And then we get to the saddest individual, the outsider looking. They want to belong, but they're not accepted. And they get angry. Whether it's a clique, okay, and or the school. Most of the kids that I work with, the at-risk kids, were outsiders looking in. And you know what I would do? I would teach them how to be invisible and gain power that way. So all of a sudden, they start making C's and B's. And they would be careful. These kind of kids that say, you know what? The only difference between you and the good kids is You get caught and the good kids don't get caught. You say, you want to get caught. What do you want to say? Why do you say that, sir? Because you misbehave in front of the principal, you misbehave in front of, you misbehave in front of grown-ups. You know? And so all of a sudden you start paying attention to their environment. And they don't get caught, so they get treated better. And before you know it, they graduate. Okay? But if you find yourself feeling like an outsider looking in, go find another job. Okay? Because it'll get you there. It's not. And you'll find yourself that instead of having 2 glasses of wine, you're having a bottle. Okay? You do. And stay away from the tequila. Because you'll think that everybody's wrong except you. Okay? And then there's the outsider looking out, and that's the way I see myself. Okay? And the nice thing about being an outsider looking out is that you learn how to behave according to the culture that you're participating in. I work with 59 school districts. Okay? And I have to service them every year. So I have to learn 59 different cultures. And then when you get to the big schools, like Austin, United, El Paso, okay? There was different cultures within that culture. And you go in there, and I would tell my workers, they were complaining. I said, look, you have to respect the culture that you're working in. And that's the power of being an outsider looking out. Okay? Are there any questions at this point? In fact, I should look over, remember, ask if there's any questions. Just, what's on your mind? Just, no, no, I picture you. So, let's start talking about stress. Let's start talking about real and ideal. Notice that 160,000 families hold 23% of the wealth in this country. And the poor people have dropped from 35% to 23%. But the people that have maintained their wealth are pretty well. Okay? The meritocracy. So people in this room have been getting richer. But here's the reality. So when you ask people, are you going to be rich? Yes. 60% of the people think they're going to be rich, which is in the top 10%. Do you believe 10% of millennials think they're going to get up there? But you know what percent get up there? Takes $10 million. So that means that there's 50% of millennials that are walking around frustrated because they think they're going to be rich but they're poor. Okay? Poor in relationship to their ideal, right? Maybe they're rich in relationship to their reality, but they're walking around feeling stressed because they haven't reached where they think they should be. And this is real right here. Now you say, I'll never make it. Let me tell you a story. My teacher in high school, Frankie, very smart, very small. Every time that I argued a pitch with him, against somebody, and I threw the pitch that I wanted to, usually it was a double or a triple or something. Okay? But Frankie was a guy, he did not really enjoy school. And he's one of that group of kids that realized that it's easier to just have fun during the year, go to summer school and get it done in 6 weeks. Okay? And he did that, especially with English and math. And then when he graduated from high school, he tried to get to the Air Force and he didn't pass the test. Okay? So then he started working as happy Andy. Started working with the cable company, and then he started working as a lineman and stuff. And then he ended up in Lebanon, Lubbock. And he started working with another company. And he went to a lecture where they talked about matching funds and you know, what do you call it? Shit. You know, where you save money. Well, he learned about that. But what do you call it? We matching funds?
401k.
Huh?
401k.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So he went back to his family and he told them, started working at this oil company. And he said, look, based on what they just told me, by the time we retire, we could be millionaires. And he told the wife, well, we're going to have to tighten the budget. But the wife kind of gave him a little portion for me. You don't have to work, you can stay at home. She says, I'm buying. And then the daughter, he had a daughter, and then director of other economics. And what's in it for me? Well, you can go to college as long as you want to. I'm in. And she has. She's had about 3 majors already. She just can't figure out what she wants to do. She'll get a major, she'll go to work, I don't like it, so she goes back to school. They're millionaires. Okay? So that Frankie became a millionaire simply by following the rules and saving, and it can be done. Why am I telling you this story? If any of you think you cannot make it to the top 9.9%, it's only because you're not thinking clearly about your money. Okay? Because he did. So, but you notice how much more difficult it is for minorities, right? This creates I think that this is responsible for the most stress there is in this culture. That we see, and we take a look at all these people taking vacations and all this kind of stuff, and we don't do it. And it just hurts us. We get stressed. Again, the difference between the real self and the ideal self. Read tons of books and articles the way I have about success in this country. And you know why? Did anybody will tell you? Love plays a very, very big part of just about everything that works out. I call it universal randomness. Universal randomness. Which is luck, coincidence, chance, serendipity, synchronicity, hunch, or intuition. I can't solve a problem, and I'm watching Netflix, and all of a sudden one of the characters answers my question. How do you explain it? Or I go into your pocket or clipboard, and all of a sudden the article I'm reading is in line with what I've been thinking about. I don't know how you explain stuff like that. Maybe I've just become very good at research that I can zero in, but I believe in that. And then there's also most of our lives. I remember when I was a big John Wayne fan, didn't really understand. Think of the fairy tales and myths that dominate your life. It's part of wellness. Think about it. Prince Charming, Snow White, and then you get into people like Zorro, one of my favorite characters. I love Zorro. And then there's the authoritarianism that's found in the institutions where you're not allowed to think. And panaceas, those people are going to the psychiatrist because they're looking for a panacea. People don't read health books to try and follow diets and stuff. Follow a magic thing. Oh, I'm going to do this and everything's going to be okay. It doesn't work that way. Okay? Placebos and nocebos. We don't know why one helps the other person or why the other one does damage. And then miracles. Do you believe in miracles? I do. So these are kind of things that always impinging on your body, your wellness, your mental health, your stress, the way you relate to others. People thinking, or do I bore you up? Or is it just because it's Valentine's Day? You meditating? I hope so. Who said that? Thank you. Yeah. Well, let's not everybody got to make it. Just feel it. We talked about this already. Please keep this in mind. Okay, your brain is designed to look at the negative because it's survival. What you need to do is you need to work and reinforce the positive. And you need to work on your perceptions and not surrender to that negativity bias. Okay? And it takes work. It takes work to be happy. Okay? And part of that work is paying attention to it when it happens. All happiness is a collection of happy moments. The point is that most of those happy moments go by unnoticed because our minds are preoccupied with the negative moments that already happened in the past. And the destructive effects of self-criticism, they're there. Here's what I want you to contemplate. Sit down and think about this. Chronic stress is linked to the 6 leading causes of death: heart disease, cancer, lung ailments, accidents, cirrhosis of the liver, and suicide. But here's the important thing that people don't realize. 75 to 90%, and most of us think 90%, of doctors' visits are stress related. All those people that miss work, it's stress. Yeah. But people don't know. It's kind of like what we're doing right now. Most people don't think. Can you imagine taking an hour to deal with your body, to deal with your wellness? Most people don't do that. Dr. Mesmus has been focused on doing this even before he came here. They were doing it already, right? And it is amazing. It is scary. And the thing about it, talk to someone like him about insurance costs that are paid. Amazing. Most of the school districts in the valley are poor because of insurance costs. Okay? So all that money that could be used for more innovative kinds of things for the kids are being used to pay for insurance for the teachers and for the kids. I mean, you're getting kids now 10 years old that are struggling with chronic stress. Very young. Okay? Especially the competitive ones. And they come into first grade already complete. You know? Some of them do it like my daughter in pre-K. Okay? I don't know how many of you have a significant setback in life. I have. Okay? I had a big business failure that cost me millions of dollars. Big. And when it first happened, the first thing I did was I took out the sick leave from Mexico. It's the only good beach in Mexico. I didn't know that at the time. But don't worry about those kind of beaches because the ones that should be worrying are not worrying. The ones that should not be worrying are worrying. You know? So it's not really that fun. But what I liked about it was that I spent 40 days there reminding Indians and Europeans and just doing nothing. And when I arrived in Sipolitos, I went like this. It took me about a week. 30 minutes to walk to breakfast. and then an hour with dessert. That kind of stuff. And my body rebelled. Yeah. And as a result of it, I came back, and I tried to make things happen. After I came back, I tried to make things happen. And I contracted bronchitis and then asthma, and I ended up with 6 hospitalizations back to back. Why? Because I didn't know how to be sick. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I wasn't following doctor's orders. I hadn't been to a doctor in over 30 years. So, this is what we're doing. People that are sick, and I've talked to many people that are sick, first of all, trying too hard to make things happen usually doesn't work. Creates a lot of stress. I hope none of you will ever get as sick as I did. Okay? To where your doctor tells you you almost died last night. Okay? It makes you wake up. Don't wait until then. And then, the other thing that happens is that, you know what's the only reason they push you in the hospital? To force you to rest. They keep you in a bed all the time, watching TV and doing nothing, and resting. You can do that at home, but we don't do it. Okay? And then you focus on reducing stress and anxiety, and you regain the ability to sleep soundly during the night. The only reason that I survived my setback was because of healthy. I'm just curious, how many of y'all sleep 8 to 9 hours a night? Raise your hands. Okay. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of this whole room. Okay? In fact, I'm not sleeping so much, guess what? I've reduced my beer drinking. Why? Because 2 beers will disrupt my sleep. And I like my sleep when I enjoy the beer. So that was easy. You know? Right? And last night I slept 8 hours. I went to sleep early. So, you know, like a nurse. You go to sleep, you're still sleeping. So, and then I lived with this person once, and she read a lot of self-help books. One right after the other. But she never practiced anything. Okay? She just read one book after the other and self-help. And many of us do that and read articles. Why? Because those are the articles that are coming, that I'm looking at being read. So we read a lot. Practice what you read. You know, it's kind of like I want to ask several of you all. I'm going to ask several of you all what you learned in this session when we finish. And the best thing to do is just take, I know somebody taking notes, take one thing that you grabs you of what I've been saying and do that. And do it for 40 days, 30 days, 40 days. All those things that I told you that I do, all that was incremental. I did one for 30 days, I did another one for 30 days, I did another one for 30 days, until it became a collection. And then I practice them, and I monitor them, I keep track of them, accountability, on 2 databases that I have on the website. Okay? So I'm asking you to rest. I'm asking you to rest. I'm asking you to rest. But guess what? You want to compete with? You want to compete for better jobs, right? Everybody in here does. This is what elite performers do. They sacrifice. It's part of the process of achievement. They're conscientious, and when conscientious with the farmers, what they realize right now, if you want to be successful in work, you have to have a partner that's conscientious also. If you don't have a partner that's conscientious, then more than likely you're not going to be successful. Okay? The most successful people have partners that are very conscientious. It's very important. There's self-discipline, there's perseverance, and diligence. And then like Warren Buffett says, they say no to most everything. Right now, because of what I have on the plate, I'm saying no to a lot of my friends when they want to go eat. Everybody in the valley wants to go out to eat. And you gain 5 pounds every time you go out to eat. Okay? You know, and you walk around feeling uncomfortable. But I say no to them. And I invite them to go out to the basketball court, I invite them to go to the park to play frisbee with me. None of them want to do that. You know, go out to play sports with me, they don't want to do that. They want to go out to eat. So I say no. I say no a lot. And right now, my friends are upset with me. You know, I don't answer the phone sometimes when I'm writing. Why? Because of what I learned from Warren Buffett. Think about how, think of what the Roman Marcus Aurelius said, that you'll fight if anybody messes around with your things or whatever, but we allow people to mess around with our time. Okay? And it should be the other way around. We should be very protective of our time. Okay? But we're not. What a big difference that family is. What a big difference can do in the healthy family relationship. I'm definitely going to want some feedback about this lecture, please, guys. Okay? This is what children do. Why do I put up there is that one of the things that people do is they forget about their child. And the moment you start forgetting about your child, you start messing around with your whole optimism, with your whole way of looking at the world, with your creativity, with your ways of doing things. And this is what children do. Notice how active I've been during the lecture. All of this is something that I try to practice. Now let's go through this and we're almost finished. This is what the years have taught me. Now I want you to reflect on each one of them. We think we know more than we know. Those are the notes that I'm reading right now. Okay? We don't know how much we don't know about what we think we know. We don't want to think for ourselves. But we don't want to be told what to do. And if you're a manager, that is the most ungrateful job there is. Okay? Very stressful. It is being a foreman, being a manager is very difficult. We don't want to be told what to do. We hide behind a mask until it cracks. How are you doing? Everything's fine. You know? Like right now, what's going on right now? I don't know. Okay? But I mean, people are just doing, it looks like I'm getting, maybe I'm misinterpreting. And then we push and stay away from those who can help us because of shame and guilt. So here I am at home, and I'm struggling for my next breath. And I see the cell phone there, and I can call my friend to take me to the emergency room, and I don't. And then finally, when the sun starts coming up, the symptoms decrease, and I feel enough energy. I get in the car, and I drive myself to the doctor. The doctor puts me in the ambulance, takes me to the hospital. Okay? Why can't I call a friend to take me? Because of shame and guilt. And many people die because of shame and guilt. You have to deal with frustration, rejection, financial pressure, complacency, and give more than you expect to receive. And the way you do it is by practicing what I've been teaching you in terms of relaxing. Dr. Maxwell Smart, psychocybernetics, define success as a direction, understanding, courage, charity, esteem, self-confidence, and self-acceptance. As a leader, you can intimidate, direct, model, reinforce, be consistent, and be patient. And I think the most important things there are be patient and reinforce. Okay? And we finally get to the last one. Self-compassion. So what I want you to do right now is just think of the worst mistake you've made since the start of the year. Please. Think of the worst mistake you've made since the start of the year. Think about it. And it can be physically, financial, etc. It can be telling a friend off. That even if the person deserved it. Okay? Think of the worst mistake you've made. Now, just forgive yourself for it. And just feel some self-compassion. You're okay. And just taking those moments and feeling a sense of forgiveness for what you've done is a big step in the wellness and balanced health. And all of this takes practice and time. Now, that's the end of the lecture. You can just... What did you learn today? I'm going to ask several of you this question. What'd you like? That was one of the biggest reactions I got at the Health Expert Conference. His lady repeated twice. Sir? Pardon? Each day. Right. And you're a different self. Because there's no permanent self. And that's the illusion, that there's a permanent self. For a different person for our lives. Yeah? And what's one thing that you're thinking of doing? Did you find yourself just difficult to transition to? Yeah. Do you have asthma or something? No? Just anxiety. Okay. About? Being aware of what's going on. Yeah? Yeah. Thank you, thank you. It is. It's amazing how much your life changes once you're engaged in memories. I'm not sure. Right. And the fact that we're fragmented. Yeah. And I got it from the government. Just like that. Yeah. Yeah?
I think our brains are hardwired for negativity.
Yeah.
And contributes to stress.
Right.
And that stress has all these physical elements that they stress. We're so hardwired
Right. You're right. And it takes practice. And it takes, look, what I'm asking to do, one thing, what you mean? Yeah. Keep it simple. Yeah. When you're working on habit formation, I'll leave you all with this. You're working on changing your habits. The mistake people do is they come out with like 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 habits. It doesn't work. The way to deal with habits, take one habit and work with that habit for greater than 40 days. Just one habit. And when you finish with that habit, reinforce it, but then you go to another habit. Only keep it simple. You know? So, I can tell you other stories about it. What's your impression of the election this year? Any feedback? What could I have done different?
Me? I think you're excellent, and I think you certainly pointed out something that I know. We're just going to go. I didn't know you about it. I don't let myself I think it was very key when you pointed out that negative thoughts cause stress, all negative thoughts, because some negative thoughts are factual, and they are real, and they are deserved, and they're okay. But that tends to make you think it's not having an effect on you. And I thought it was very telling when you pointed out, you go along, and then all of a sudden you collapse. That's something I think that people don't think about.
And, I didn't until that. You're right. And I just hope that what I talked about today prevents that in all of y'all, and not have to go through what I did. Okay? Thank you very much. Yeah.
What's the name of the book you're reading right now?
Yeah, the book of Laughter and Forgiving. Laughter and Forgiving by Kundera. K-U-N-D-E-R-A. Very famous writer.
Yeah, it would be, but if you are ready, we can do it quickly so that we can come back and stay on time. I don't know, are you guys want to read right now? All right, the podium's right there, 5 minutes, and then come back.
Bring your party with you. Yeah, he's trying to say. How are you? Let's go. Lily's like big north. I'll find it. No wonder you're so sweet. I know. That's her mind. She's working her mind.
Yes, I did before. Was I off my game today or something? Did you notice anything different with me today?
No.
Since the election? No?
Why?
No, I feel like I'm looking at it. I felt spacey when I won.
Oh.
No? You know, as much as you were, that's one of the things that, what do you think they were doing? Thinking? Yeah.
Did you do that?
What?
Do that?
You were back there?
I got the. Yes. Look at that. Yeah, what where we're sitting down. Our students we just came back in, like, we did. Oh, that's okay.
You're about to have, no, you're about to have one today. On the slide.
Yeah.
Fingers.
Ones, no, you have ones? That's what I'm saying, you have to. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, no, just need to change the 5. Oh, there's probably. I'll bring it.
Hello? All right, in order to stay on time, we're going to go ahead and continue. And I want to welcome Sarah Lengua. And she's been here before, and I want to thank her for being here and coming in and talk to us. So please welcome Sarah.
Thank you. Good to see you guys again. I know the vast majority of you in the room, which is always nice. It's kind of like coming home. Happy Valentine's Day. I looked at my closet this morning and I don't know a piece of red clothing. So he did the normal black and white that everyone sees. So it's great to be here. I'm a partner in the Houston office of KBS Law Group. So my KBS Law Group for the very obvious reasons that we have the names Parchesky and Langlois in our official title. And nobody can pronounce. So we are just KBS Law Group. I'm here today to talk to you about the changing landscape of the TPIA, and specifically Senate Bill 943, which was passed this past legislative session. And it's sort of a beast. There's a lot of words in this bill. And when I first found out about the bill that it was passed last year, I looked at it and I always looked to the end, right, to see when does this sucker go into effect. And I thought, oh, hallelujah, it doesn't go into effect until January 1st, 2020. We have plenty of time. And then what happens? Blink, and it's January 2020. So here we are, and so Senate Bill 943 is officially in effect as we sit
here today, went into effect January 1st. And you might be thinking, I don't do TPIA. That's not under my umbrella. Why are you here talking to us about this? Well, because what Senate Bill 943 did to the TPIA was greatly change the landscape in terms of the information you guys deal with on a daily basis. Contracting information, proposals, response to RFQs, and procurement solicitations, etc. So with that said, let's have a little bit of a history lesson. So with regards to TPIA requests for pricing information, and I won't dwell too, in the interest of time, too much on this, but you'll recall that for years and years, decades and decades, the AG's office, whenever they issued a ruling about pricing information, would always say the line, there's nothing more public than how much a governmental entity spends using tax dollars, right? There's nothing more public than pricing information. Well, and that was the law for decades and decades. Well, then in 2015, the landscape greatly changed due to a Texas Supreme Court decision, Boeing versus Paxton. And in that decision, the Texas Supreme Court said that a vendor or a proposer could withhold their pricing information and other related information in response to a Texas Public Information Act request if all they had to say, literally, the only thing they had to say is, if releasing this information would give an advantage to my competitors. Like literally one sentence, and the AG would come, after Boeing, would come back and say, yep, the vendor said that if we release this information, it would give an advantage to their competitors, so governmental entity, you have to withhold it. And so what did that call into question? It called into question things that we routinely did, like posting contracting information, bid tabs, all of that information on the website, routinely giving that information out to whoever asked for it. And a lot of times we didn't even make them go through the official TPIA process, right? If you're in purchasing and you got an email that said, hey, I want the bid tab for XYZ RFP, you said, great, here you go. Not anymore after Boeing, and then not anymore still for Senate Bill 943, but we'll get to that in a second. So the shift in Boeing versus Paxton was it took away that presumption that all pricing information was public. That absolutely went away. And then going forward, as I said, a vendor just had to argue, release of this information will give an advantage to my competitor. Previously, before Boeing, they had to argue and they had to prove to the AG's office that it would give a decisive advantage, whatever that means. So again, that calls into question, this is not working, all the things that we were used to doing, like regularly handing out bid tabs, etc. The Houston Chronicle did a really interesting, or at least interesting to me, because I'm a nerd and I like this stuff, article analyzing what was the Boeing effect. So after 2015, what was the effect of AG rulings? And what the Houston Chronicle's analysis found was that the number of records opinions that were issued by the AG's office increased by 50% in a 9-year period. So in 2009, they issued a little over 17,000 rulings, and then in 2018, almost 32,000. And then similarly with regards to denials, the denials went up significantly as well. And then interestingly, they looked just at Boeing. How many times was the Boeing decision cited as a basis to withhold information by the AG's office? In 2015, the year the Texas Supreme Court decision came out, it was invoked 252 times. In 2018, it was invoked over 1,500 times. And there's a reason for that, right? The decision came out, it took a hot minute for the information to flow down, not only to the TPIA officers to know, oh gosh, we have to now ask for rulings when we get this request for this type of information, and we have to notify the third parties. It took a while for the vendors to catch on that, hey, all I have to do is write literally one sentence to the AG's office, and now my competitor doesn't get my pricing information? Sweet. So where does that leave us now, post-Boeing? Well, the Texas legislature passed Senate Bill 943 in direct response to that Boeing decision and then to a lesser extent to another Texas Supreme Court decision that was issued in 2015, the Greater Houston Partnership case, but largely in response to that Boeing decision. And as you see there, it was used as the basis to deny over 2,600 TPIA requests, including there's the famous one on the Enrique Iglesias one. You guys heard about that one. And that's a whole separate bill they passed in response to that. So I think it was the city of McAllen paid Enrique Iglesias to come and to perform at their holiday party. Well, somebody asked for, through a TPIA request, how much did you pay, Mr. Iglesias? And what happened? Mr. Iglesias, or rather his people, you know, those people have people who do these things, submitted an argument to the AG's office, said, oh, that would give an advantage to my competitor. I guess, you know, whoever his Beyonce, whoever his competitor is. And so they allowed it to be withheld, so the public didn't know how much they paid Enrique Iglesias. They do now because somebody has submitted a request post January 1st, 2020, and so they now have released that information. But that's just one example of the 2,600 denials for information that was directly related to Boeing. So the specific statement of intent was Senate Bill 943 restores transparency to state and local government contracting while recognizing that some information needs to be protected from disclosure in order to foster competition. So Senate Bill 943 does several things. With regards to TPIA, it does three main things. It adds a brand new definition of contracting information, and it's long, and we'll go over it. It also amended an existing provision of the TPIA with regards to confidentiality of trade secrets. And then it added a brand new section, 1101, that discusses confidentiality of proprietary information. So first of all, starting with the disclosure of contracting information, this provision specifically says that key contract terms, like overall price and deliverables, start and end dates, the identity of the parties, for example, those are going to be public information. That's always going to be public. So the general rule, the general premise we start with is that the contracting information, as that term is defined, is public and must be released unless it's accepted from disclosure. Thanks a whole lot. And the exceptions in the bill, the exceptions to disclosure don't apply to 4 categories of information. So the exceptions that we'll talk about in 110, which is trade secret, and the brand new 1101, which is proprietary information, are not going to apply to 4 categories of information. For your purposes, only the last 2 apply. Don't worry about the first 2 because those relate to state agencies and we're not state agencies. So certain contract or offer terms, and we'll go through what those are, and then certain information indicating whether a vendor, contractor, potential vendor, or potential contractor performed its duties under the contract. So here's the information that, according to the new rules, these are always going to be public information. And the following contract or offer terms or their functional equivalent. So even if you don't have this word per se in a contract, if it's a functional equivalent, it's going to be public information. The big ones here, of course, the first one. Any term describing the overall or total price the governmental body will or could potentially pay. A description of the items or services to be delivered with the total price. Delivery and service deadlines, what's the remedies for breach of contract, who are the parties to the contract, or if there is subcontractors listed specifically in the contract. Again, we see this affiliate overall or total pricing, the execution dates, effective dates, contract duration, terms, etc. For your purposes, the big ones that we need to identify, the overall or total price. And I call your attention to that because when we get to the section about proprietary information, remember this, that this one says overall or total price. And what I take that to mean is what in the school district realm, what we call the not to exceed, right? So typically your agenda item will say, consider approval with ABC company for an amount not to exceed $200,000. That's what I take to be this overall price information. Similarly, all of these things that are listed here are going to be public information, information regarding breach of contract, any remedial actions, any amendments, progress reports, a final payment checklist, etc. So 552.110 amended an existing provision of the TPIA dealing with trade secrets. Previously, when vendors would argue that their information was protected by trade secret, they had to use what we call the common law definition of trade secret. The TPIA didn't give us the definition of trade secret. This bill amended that, and now we have a finite definition of what is a trade secret. And they tell vendors, if you're going to want to argue to the Attorney General's office to withhold information as a trade secret, you have to provide, quote, specific factual evidence. You'll see that phrase over and over in this bill. Specific factual evidence that the information is a trade secret, which is defined as all of that stuff that's listed there. It has to be something that's truly unique to that particular entity. Here's the biggie, 552.1101. This is the provision that adds the brand new exception for confidentiality of proprietary information. This is the one that vendors will use instead of arguing Boeing now. They will now argue 1101, proprietary information. And this new provision says information submitted to a governmental body by either a vendor, contractor, potential vendor, or potential contractor in response to a request for a bid, proposal, or qualification. So what does that mean? Any information they're submitting to you in a proposal, they're having way much more fun. They're clearly not talking about 943. No, they are not. So proposals, statements of qualifications, vendor packets, all that information, that's what we're talking about. If the vendor shows that the information the vendor demonstrates, sorry, this is like, I know, I'm like, Senate Bill 943. The vendor now, instead of Boeing, has to show specific factual evidence that disclosure of the information would reveal an individual approach to work, organizational structure, staffing, internal operations processes, or, here's the biggie, discounts, pricing methodology, other pricing information that will be used in future solicitation or bid documents, and would give an advantage to a competitor. So you see where it's very Boeing-esque. They're still going to allow vendors to withhold that information, but they have to do so based on specific factual evidence. And where I got, I sat down with the bill where I got pretty confused was, when we covered contracting information earlier, and we went through that list of items that said, here's things that are always going to be public, it said pricing, right? It said overall or total price, and the second one even said overall or total price for each item. Okay, but then this says pricing methodology, other pricing information that will be used in future solicitation or bid documents. So I immediately thought, okay, like a bid tab. Let's take a line item bid, right? If we award a contract and it has a not to exceed amount, okay, that's going to be public. But all those line items where they delineate out, you're going to pay X dollars per widget, will that be used in a future bid solicitation? Well, yeah, I mean, because at least, here at HCDE, for example, we bid, like most of you do, at least every 4 to 5 years. You issue, once and then up to 4 one-year renewals, or under TBA up to 3 one-year renewals. So we know it's going to be used in future solicitations. I went to a conference about 3 weeks ago, and the head guy from the TPIA division of the AG's office was there speaking, and I thought, yes, this is my opportunity. I'm going to be that annoying person who, as soon as he's done up there, I'm going to ask this question, right? I'm going to get an answer. And so I did it. And I went up there and I said, hey, this is how I'm reading this, but I'm seeing this. So if my clients get a TPIA request for bid tabs, or for proposals that include pricing information, what are we to do? And, how is the AG's office interpreting this? Those line items, is that in the proposals, is that going to be public information and we need to release that or not? And he says, that's a great question. And the color just drained from my face. And so he said, look, we're still having that discussion in our office. We're going to have to wait and see that whenever somebody asks, the first time somebody invokes this, and we have a real life situation to deal with, we'll issue a ruling, we'll decide whatever it is that we're going to decide. I thought, you are no help at all to me. But that being said, I keep looking, including this morning. I have not said, at least via my source, I have not seen where they've yet issued a ruling yet under 552-1101. So it's a wait and see for now. But what do we do in the meantime? Well, I have at least 3 clients who have gotten requests from that Smart Procure, those people, who say, we want copies of all of your contracts for all of your vendors. One client has over 600 responsive vendors. Another has 500, another one has 400. So where I am right now is I'm submitting requests for clarification to Smart Procure, saying, I think that's the next slide. That's one of the options, I'll come back to that, is to request clarification. And I tell them, look, the law has changed. I cite 1101. I say, here's what the landscape is. And we have an obligation as the governmental entity, go back one, that we have to decline to release that information and notify each of the affected third parties, all 600, all 500, via the form that's on the AG's website, of their opportunity to submit arguments to the Attorney General of why their information is confidential. Because think about it, if we just release it, we've just waived all those vendors' rights to argue to the Attorney General, hey, my stuff's confidential under 1101, or it's a trade secret, or it's one of the other dozens and dozens of exceptions to the TPIA. And so with that said, requesting clarification, saying here's the process, here's what we're going to have to do. And even in that latest request for clarification that I sent earlier this week, I said it's based on a preliminary analysis, it appears that more than 600 vendors, and you're requesting more than 600 vendors' information. I estimated if it took 7 minutes per vendor, by the time you download the document, you enter, that specific vendor's information, you print it out, you sign it, you put it in the envelope, you address the envelope, you bring it, or Winford's dying, because Winford does TPIA here at HCDE. So I just estimated 7 minutes, and so I said 600 and something times 7, anyway, you will take us like 55 hours to do. Do you really want this information? I asked, can you narrow your request to specific vendors or to a shorter time period, or can you clarify, what products or services that are you wanting? I haven't heard back on any of the requests for clarification yet, but we shall see. Another option is to obtain a waiver from the vendor. Now that's kind of, in this instance, would be just as much effort as doing the darn third-party notice letters, right? But let's say you get a request and it's only a handful of vendors. If you call the vendors, or rather email, show them a lawyer, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist, ask them, do they care if you release the information or not? Savvy ones, they care, right? Because they want to argue to the Attorney General. Others might say, no, I don't care, you can release it. You don't have to give us that formal notice. The most likely route you're going to have to go, though, is proceed under 552-305, which is the process of we have to request a ruling from the Attorney General's office. We don't have to take a position of whether the information is confidential or not. We just have to request the ruling and then notify each of the affected third parties via that form notice on the AG's website of their right to submit arguments to the Attorney General. The other thing that I've been doing, and I brought an example, is I know, don't shoot me, it's another form, but I've added a form to vendor packets. It's called a confidentiality declaration form, where I explain here's the contracting information that's public. Is there any information in your submittal, in your proposal, that is confidential? And if so, you need to mark it as such. Or is there not, and do you waive your right to get that third-party notice letter? And they check the box, yes or no. And so we'll see going forward, is that helpful, is it not? If it's not helpful, then we'll just take it out. It's not required to be in there. I put it in there just to try to have a tool to use that when we get requests for information, we can pull these and say, okay, oh, this vendor has waived. We can just release it. Oh, this one hasn't, so we're going to have to go through the process. But that's, those are the steps. Here's just a screenshot of the AG's website relating to third-party information, and that's the link that provides you to the form notice letter to the affected third parties that you can download in Word. But there's a misspelled word. What is it? I can't remember. Proprietary is misspelled. So you might want to, unlike the AG's office, use spell check. Okay, so that's the piece of Senate Bill 943 relating to contracting information and proprietary information. The other provision in Senate Bill 943, it adds a brand new subchapter to the TPIA, subchapter J, and this is specifically relating to contracts with vendors that are worth $1 million or more in public funds, or even if that one contract's not worth $1 million, if it results in the expenditure of at least $1 million for the purchase of goods or services in the fiscal year of the governmental body. We're back to that, our favorite four-letter word in the aggregate, right? That we won't talk about today. Now, if you're in that world, if you have a contract that's $1 million or more, or it's going to result in you spending $1 million or more in your fiscal year, then this provision is going to apply. It applies to contracting information that's in the possession of the vendor. So you get a TPIA request in for information that's relating to this contract, and you say, well, we don't have it. Well, before, what would we do? Write back, no responsive documents, peace. Now, though, we have to go one step further and see, does the vendor have it? Again, this is only for contracts of $1 million or more, so don't freak out. If you receive the TPIA request for information, then you have to, no later than the 3rd business day, they're giving us more deadlines to work with. Calm down, Wilford. Then the entity must provide, you have to notify that entity that they have to provide that information to us. Then there's whole new deadlines under this specific section in order to request a ruling from the AG's office. Similarly, if you're in this contract, the world of contracts with $1 million plus, you must require, and you'll see in the next slide, there's specific language that you must use in your bids and in the contracts. You have to require the contracting entity to preserve all contracting information related to the contract as provided by the records retention schedule applicable to you, applicable to the governmental entity for the duration of the contract. Don't raise your hands, just ask yourself, do you know what the record retention requirements are for your governmental entity? All those schedules, all that stuff? Do you think the vendor's gonna know what those are? No, they won't. But now you have to contractually require them to preserve all that information in accordance with your record retention schedule. You also have to promptly provide, contractually obligate them to promptly provide any contracting information related to the contract that's in the vendor's custody or control at their request. And on completion of the contract, either provide at no cost to the governmental body all contracting information related to the contract that's in their possession, or preserve it. Yeah, wow. Yeah. So there's 3 exceptions to this $1 million plus that this is not going to apply to. It does not apply to a contract that's related to the purchase or underwriting of a public security. If it's a contract is or may be used as collateral on a loan, or if the contract's proceeds are used to pay debt service of a public security or a loan. So unless you fall within one of those exceptions, if you have a contract of $1 million plus, you have to include, and this is a quote from the bill, from the new law, the following statement in the bid document, in your procurement solicitation, and in the contract. The requirements of subchapter J, 552, may apply to this, and you say either bid or contract as applicable. And the contractor or vendor agrees that the contract can be terminated if the contractor or vendor knowingly or intentionally fails to comply with a requirement of that subchapter. So what is our role with regards to Senate Bill 943, in addition to including that mandatory language in the procurement solicitation and in the contract? It specifically says that we can't accept a bid for a contract or award a contract if we've determined, basically, there's a whole lot of words that say, if the vendor failed to comply with this subchapter previously, and they did it knowingly and intentionally. Well, what's knowingly and intentionally? Usually those words only come up in the criminal realm, right? Like what is considered to be knowing and intentional. For purposes of this, I would say, if you provided the notice, so that's one thing you're supposed to do, if you provide notice to the vendor that they failed to comply with the requirement of the chapter. Like you got a TPI request in, you asked for information, they didn't give it to you, you send this additional notice that says you didn't comply, and there's specific provisions for the notice. It has to be in writing, etc. Then I would say that's knowing, right? And they still didn't comply, they failed to remediate. You could prove somebody signed for the certified mail, they got the notice, that's probably knowing or intentional. And then finally, you can terminate a contract for a vendor who does not comply with the provisions of this subchapter. If you provide the notice, the contracting entity fails to cure the violation, and if you determine, again, that they did so knowingly or intentionally, then you can actually terminate the contract. So, big penalties. This new subchapter J went into effect January 1st, 2020, like the rest of the bill, but it specifically says it only applies to a contract that's executed on or after January 1st. So if your district has entered into any contracts that are $1 million plus since January 1 and you haven't included this mandatory language, I highly suggest you amend that contract to add it. And in my final 2 minutes, a little lagniappe. You guys know I'm from South Louisiana, and so lagniappe is a little something extra. So Senate Bill 944, just a very brief overview, has some very scary language in it that applies to what they're calling temporary custodians of public information. I am going to venture to guess all of you in this room are temporary custodians of public information. It's defined as somebody with possession, custody, or control of public information. And all of you, I see your phones out. I'm assuming you do business on those phones. And so you are now a temporary custodian of public information. You must surrender or return the information to the governmental body no later than the 10th day after the date the public information officer or their agent requests surrender of the information. So you get an email from your TPI officer that says, we've received the open records request for the following. Please search your files to determine if you have any information that is responsive. What does that now mean? It's kind of always meant this, but now it's clear in the law. You have to search all of your files. That means, and people say, you mean my personal cell phone? Yes, I mean your personal cell phone. And in fact, we're going to get to a slide in a minute, it even discusses privately owned devices. This also makes a temporary custodian's failure to surrender or return public information grounds for disciplinary action from the governmental body and grounds for also any applicable penalties. So temporary custodian, again, further definition, officer or employee of a government body who, in a transaction of official business, creates or receives public information that you haven't otherwise provided to the TPIA officer. It includes a former officer or employee. So where's Mr. Pete? You're moving on to Dallas. You are still going to be subject to this at Deer Park once you move on. Similarly with trustees, that applies as well. Most of them think I'm off the board. Peace out. I'm done. This bill now applies to former trustees as well. They public, temporary custodians of public information. What's the applicability of this new law? It specifies that the laws governing the preservation, destruction, or other disposition of records or public information applies to temporary custodians, and adds an obligation relating to obtaining public information from temporary custodians to the TPIA officer. So it's not enough now to just, for example, email people within the organization. You now have to think about and say, somebody who just left, could they have information relating to this TPIA request? And contact them as well. Here's the piece about privately owned devices. A current or former officer or employee of a governmental body who maintains public information on a privately owned device. Again, don't raise your hand, please. But answer to yourself, do you text with your colleagues, your coworkers, your supervisor about district business? Please don't raise your hand. If so, that's public information, and this now applies to you. So here's what you're supposed to do under the law. You shall, that member shall is must, forward or transfer the public information to the governmental body or to the server to be preserved in accordance with your record retention rules, or preserve the public information in its original form, i.e. don't delete those text messages, in a backup or archive and on the privately owned device for the time prescribed by your record retention schedule. Yeah. Some people's phones don't work that well. This is definitely don't shoot the messenger, and so I leave you with my two cuties. Happy Valentine's Day. So you can at least have a smile with all of that amazing information that's, now you're looking at your cell phone and discuss. So, awesome. Is there a time period for the former employees? Just so whatever the record retention schedule is. Yeah. Or if you're soon to be former employee, you can say, you know what? I'm going to transfer everything I have to the TPIA officer, and I'm going to say that. I'm going to say I am transferring all of my files where they are, and I'm no longer responsible. And I'm just saying, yeah, changing my phone number, my identity, and everything else. Thank you guys so much for having me. Have a great day. So we have to wait for the AC. So if you get a request for bid tabs right now, I know your boss.
All right, continue to the presentation. I'm going to ask Kim Duncan to present from Trust Bank and talk to us about bank fraud and fees and things that we need to be aware of. So we have handouts.
Yeah, I'll pass my
okay. All right, so again, we're going to stay on target and be able to continue the session until 1 o'clock. So please help me welcome.
So Joanne knew about it. I'm just saying, when I asked him, he had no idea what I was talking about. Okay. That's where the check.
None. Because it didn't start yet. So.
Well, I'm with Cross Bank. Been with Cross about 5.5 years. I'm on the treasury side, and I partner with relationship managers that are the lending office. And I particularly partner with the group called Public Funds. And so they are more dedicated to groups like yourselves, school districts, municipalities, nonprofits, churches. And it makes them a little more uniquely qualified to understand what your true needs are in terms of finance. So my role at the bank is treasury management, and I look at how money comes into the bank, how your money goes out of the bank, and all the electronic services that go with that, and who actually has a means of touching that online. And then we have a lot of fraud that goes with that. So we do a lot of consulting for that. I want to ask you all, real quick, what percentage number do you think it is that you would be as a prospect for fraud? Maybe 25%? 15%? It's 100%. Every one of you are a potential target, every single one of you. And so part of what I want to talk to you about today is how they do this, what the numbers look like in terms of statistics, and how you all can protect yourselves. Because some of you have a piece of touching those funds when it goes in and out of the bank, and how it moves and how it gets back in. So in 2019, 78% of businesses were targeted. That doesn't mean they all took a loss, but it means that's how high the percentages are. They're targeted. In 2016, there were $10 billion in losses. That's B. $10 billion B. That's a huge number. And that was a 2,300% increase from 2013. So it's just it's ratcheting up in a huge way. Predicted losses this year are $2 trillion. Average cost of a breach is $150 million. And I know none of you wants to see your district go through that kind of a loss. So how do they do it? Every one of you has email. Y'all have computers. The easiest way they do it is to spoof someone's email. And by someone, it's usually someone higher up that has a lot of authority. And they send you an email that's urgent. Probably a lot of typos in it. It says, get this money out, needs to be wired out to so-and-so. I can't be reached. I'm at the dentist, I'm at the whatever. And you as a diligent employee wants to get that done. Once that money's gone, it's gone. So we tell you, don't ever trust an email. Trust but verify. Go back to the old-fashioned way. Call a number that you know so that you're not caught in one of those situations. One thing that is of vital importance too is to put some separation of duties and some dual control process in place internally. So if you don't have that in place now, think real long and hard about how to do that. Our online banking system has a dual control feature in it. Probably most of y'all are familiar with that with your own banks. One person can set up a payment. The next person who's authorized has to approve it. So always have those kinds of controls in place internally as well. How else do they do it? Well, they do it with ACH debit as well. I know y'all think that when you keep your checkbook, your school checkbook, your district checkbook, whatever, locked up, nobody's going to get that information. But the truth of the matter is, when you send a check, it goes through a number of hands before it gets to the bank that it needs to be deposited at. And any one of those hands, if they're dishonest, can take that information and use it for their benefit. Some of them will use it to gather your account information and create electronic debits to your account. Some of them will actually forge checks. Someone will steal the check, they'll forge it. Some of them gather the checks and wash the payee and get those deposited. Or some just get your information and create their own checks and just start cashing all over the place. So every bank has different types of services that can help you mitigate that kind of a risk. We've got a federal control process as far as getting your payments out. For check fraud, there's a tool called Positive Pay. Some of you are familiar with this because you use it in your district. You provide us with a paying file. We know which checks you released, and we only pay those checks. For someone who's fraudulent and they're cashing those checks all over the place, then they'll just get returned because they're not good checks. And then they'll go on to their next victim. So, Positive Pay, dual controls. In terms of ACH debits, a lot of districts have separated their accounts such that you've got a disbursement account and you've got your incoming account. Your disbursement account, that's your checks going out, your ACH checks going out, your wires going out. Your internal account can have some locks put on it for ACH, where you block all ACH debits. That's coming up here. Or you filter them, so we know which ones you're allowing. Or you want to review them all first and make sure that you're only paying the ones that you want paid. There's all kinds of different tools like that that you can put in place. And I would encourage every single one of you, if you're not using those services, take a good long look at them. Because again, the losses are huge. You don't want to be the one sitting in your desk hearing about the $150 million loss your district just took because you didn't have it locked up. You know, it used to be, back in the day, the bank robbers came in with a gun and a mask, and now they sit behind a computer, and they go directly to you. They don't come to the bank, they go to you. You guys are the victims. And as much as we want to give you tools on the bank side, we also want you to be mitigating that risk internally. So put those dual controls in place. Have some separation of duty internally. The person writing those checks, if you've got a dual signature piece in place for that, make sure that somebody else, besides the signers, is actually reconciling. So you've got lots of sets of eyes looking at everything. I used to work for a school district, y'all, and I know what goes on. And I mean, we had a lot of locks in place, and so the more careful you are, the better off everyone is. And all right, the best things, I want some best practices to kind of put forward to you all. There's a path, I think that's already been passed out. It's going to give you a lot of good information that I've already talked about. But the first thing that you want to do, I've lost my page here, dual processes. When I worked at the school district, I worked for HCDE for a small period of time when my kids were little. Our IT was Johnny on the spot. There were so many locks on what we had access to as far as internet, and I'm hoping that's still the same. But that's something that needs to be looked at too. You want your IT locked up. You want to make sure that when you get an email, you're not clicking on links that you don't recognize, and you're actually looking at that email address. You know, it might show a name that you know, but if you hover over it, it's going to show you the actual address. And it might not really match the address that you're familiar with. If that happens, delete immediately. That's what we do at the bank. Now, you all might have a different policy. You may be instructed to send that to fraud control inside the district, but you want to know where your processes are to make sure that that's mitigated. Don't not back up data. In terms of the way malware and ransomware gets installed on your computers, if you're backing up on a regular basis, if you find yourself with ransomware and everything's been ransomed and you've been locked down and you can't get your data, if it's backed up every hour, you have up to the last hour of information. And use all those fraud preventive tools that the banks can offer you. And one of the things that I think is the most valuable, besides an actual service that you have to subscribe to, is just separating the account, the disbursement account versus the internal or the incoming account. really important. Back to the old-fashioned way of doing business. We live by our technology. We have to answer those emails quickly. You guys are, the speed of light, having to get things done. But when you see something that looks even a tiny bit fishy, pick up the phone and call. And not the number that's in the email that you're getting. Call the number that you know to call. I want to show you a little, I'm going to tell you all about some tricks that some of these fraudsters are doing, because we see it all day, every day. We talked about the business email compromise. They pose as someone with authority over you, giving you some direction about moving funds. We're seeing it come in sideways now, too. We're seeing folks posing as an employee saying, send my payroll to my new account. You'll see vendors do that, too. Send my payments to this new address or this new bank account. And we have to live by those emails, but we also have to trust and verify. So take that extra step. I know it takes a long time, but take that extra step. And last but not least, daily reconciliation. If you're one of those that's having to be in the bank account all the time and making sure that everything's current and up to date, you'll want to make sure that you're reconciling that very regularly, not just at the end of the month, but on a daily basis. The more frequently you check on things, the quicker you are to catch things, especially if you don't have any fraud preventive services in place. Any questions? Yes, sir.
What percent of these online vendors get caught?
Ooh, that is a great question. Well, I will tell you, I don't know the answer. I do know that when we shut them down, let's talk about in terms of wire fraud. When they pose as, you know, your when they're posing as your boss and directing you to send funds, if those funds, if we catch them, we tag that account that it's supposed to go to as a mule account. And all banks correspond about these mule accounts. So we have that list, we know. And then it's shut down. Then they go on to their next victim, start another account. They just keep on going down the line. And so I don't know what the percentage is. In terms of check fraud, we all think checks are going away, they're not. Check fraud just keeps going up, just like bank wire fraud, just like ACH fraud. But they're easier to catch because they're usually local. But again, I don't know what that number is. I can tell you that in my previous bank life, we did prosecute a couple because they actually came into the bank. They were on down criminal. But we prosecute when we can get them.
It seems like the risk is a lot lower to be a bandit than it is to be an entrepreneur. Right?
Unfortunately. Again, it's just, like I said, they used to come to the bank with a gun, but they don't do that anymore because they figured it's easier just to sit at their computer and hit you all where the money is to begin with. So just be on alert. Don't click on links. I have seen, I saw a president of a company that we bank received an invoice from a legitimate vendor, but it wasn't the vendor. He forwarded that email to his controller. She clicked on the link that was going to show the invoice, and it was just a white page. Well, that was the malware getting installed. And the next thing she did was log into the bank site, and immediately she was directed to a fake bank site. And the fraudsters behind the scenes capturing all her information. He set up a wire. He was getting ready to get dual authentication to get it sent out. And when she clicked and went, oh, wait a minute, something's not right. And she called us, and we could tell where he was, the fraudster was, in the system. So we shut that down. That's what happens when when you click on those unsuspecting links, I know that districts are really good about locking down IT. Anytime they come up with any information for you all, please pay attention to that because that's vital. So don't click on those links. Verify every email address that you get. Just make sure it's coming from the legitimate sender. Dual control processes, checks and balances, lots of different eyes looking at everything. Seems like a lot of work, but at the end of the day, it saves you from going through something like this, $150 million loss, or shutting your accounts down and starting over.
And nowadays you're notifying right away. So when it's 5 minutes, I may want to tell them it's not me. But in this processing, why do they stop it when they find out the car? Why do they open it in the process? Why can't you get an individual it's not the person?
Well, I'll start first by saying consumer laws are very different than corporate laws. So corporate banking is very different. You're on the consumer end, my debit card, for example, I get text alerts anytime for $1. And my card got compromised last night at the gas station. And then somebody in Waco was trying to buy gas, but I'm here. Credit cards, kind of the same thing. You can, I believe most credit card companies will allow you to send or something like that. And then you're able to stop it.
Like, I was just wondering why it made that, and I just think people can reverse the approval of a transaction, and they're immediately told that's not approved.
Well, part of that is because we've got to go through a documentation process. You know, if you're telling me this isn't legitimate, then we've got to send you a form that says I'm denying this payment and here's why. And if it does take a while, and we're not going to pay it right away, we'll just kind of hold it in suspense until we get documentation showing that it's a fraudulent. Then that goes to the next step. Well, if that's fraud on the account and it's check fraud, then we've got to go to the next step. We either have to attach something like positive pay to it to keep further checks from coming in, or we've got to close it out. And then you all start all over again for checks stop, numbers, all of that. It's a huge interruption in business. And so if you can attach something like positive pay to it, the better, all the better. I raced through that as quickly as I could because I'm in a little behind schedule. And you don't have another appointment to get to, but I do want to bring Karen in to introduce herself. And the party's so good.
I'm Karen White. I am the relationship manager, one of the relationship managers at Frost. And as Kim said, we work very closely together. Frost has a line of business that's dedicated exclusively to our municipalities and government entities, as well as health and human services, nonprofits, arts organizations, schools, churches. That's all we do. We do not do any commercial lending. And what that means for you and for all of our customers and prospects is that we understand your business. We don't have to go in between, are you a for-profit, and what does that mean when we look at your financial statements, or are you a nonprofit or a government entity or a school district? So we believe that you deserve someone that's especially looking out for you. We want to thank Jesus, Dr. Mesqua, did I get it right? For, not really, but anyway, for inviting us to present today. We enjoyed that opportunity. And I have a little bit of information for Frost if you'd like to take that. My card is in there if you'd just like to talk with me about it. We do service a lot of school districts within Texas, and we do respond to RFPs. So thank you very much. Good luck. Make sure you don't have any fraud in your account. Thank you, guys.
All right, So your certificates will be here in the back, so you can do